Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the webinar. We are so excited to be here and to have you all here with us today. And we're going to be talking about opportunities to future-proof your continuing education programs while maximizing member engagement and revenue growth. We have a lot to cover in a short amount of time, so we are going to get into it. But really quick, a couple of intros. I'll start with myself. My name is Emily Leary, and I lead our customer success team here at BenchPrep. I've been with BenchPrep going on 14 years now, and customer success, we're fully focused on helping our customers build, launch, grow, and really optimize their learning programs on the BenchPrep platform. I am dialing in today from Denver, and when I'm not working, I enjoy strapping wood to my feet and flying down mountains. And now I'll pass it over to Evan.
Hello, and good afternoon for those of you on the East Coast. I'm Evan, and I run the growth team here at BenchPrep. And that means I get to talk to folks like you all about building new things together, and also to all of our great customers about their long-term strategic plans and what else we can do to drive revenue and increase member engagement. I live in Michigan, but today I'm dialing in from Florida to escape the Midwest winters. So it's blue skies and sunshine down here, but I'm glad to be chatting with you all. Okay, so you've met us. Let's talk a little bit about BenchPrep. I see some familiar names joining us today, but here's a little bit about who we are for those who are less familiar. At BenchPrep, our mission is to enable associations and credentialing bodies to drive revenue growth and learner success by supporting the lifelong learning journey, from certification training and exam preparation through continuing education, micro-credentials, and beyond. Just last year, some stats about us: we added 1.5 million new learners on the platform. Over 1 billion minutes of learning was consumed across all learners, and hundreds of thousands of professionals upskilled through our platform every month. I speak, I think, for Emily and myself when I say we are so grateful to work with these associations and credentialing bodies, who you see here on the slide, and many more beyond that, to support their programs and their learners. Okay, let's jump into it. Did you know that the first instance of continuing education units was actually introduced by the American Medical Association almost 60 years ago? And we're still talking about CEUs. Demand for CEUs remains essential and is continuing to grow. In fact, it's actually predicted to reach 93 billion by 2028. That's 50% growth over the course of 6 years, which is pretty remarkable. But despite the growing market, learning and certification organizations still face material challenges. Increasing competition, more organizations are offering CE programs. To stay competitive and stand out in the market, it's crucial to deliver high-value learning experiences. Low learner engagement is a big challenge, as the modern learner is busy and often distracted. User attention span is now just over 8 seconds. And lastly, CE is generally commoditized. Continuing education offerings have become widely available, often undifferentiated, and seen as interchangeable by learners. This happens when multiple organizations offer similar courses, certifications, or training without unique value props. As a result, price becomes one of the most important deciding factors, and learners may not see a compelling reason to choose one program over another. For associations, this means competing on more than just price or convenience. It's about creating a differentiated, high-value learning experience. And I'll hand it over to Emily to dive into some of the trends we're seeing in that space.
Great. Thanks, Evan. Now, to future-proof your CE programs, you really should be aware of the key trends so that you can stay relevant, competitive, and also differentiated with your offerings. So first, I wanted to start with probably one of the hottest topics today, and a pretty obvious trend, which is AI. And I hope you're not sick of hearing about AI, because you're really just going to keep hearing about it. We're seeing AI start to play a role in the CE industry as well, and we're really starting to see that in 2 different ways. The first is how AI can support CE administrators, and how that can be used for content development and management, things that really enable administrators to create content faster, cheaply, and more efficiently. The second, which is a little bit of a more, I would say, emerging trend for AI, is how it can be incorporated into the actual learning experience itself, and really leveraging AI as a value add personalization learner tool.
If I can just chime in to add one more thought on that. AI, like any emergent technology, it is just not clear yet what the final value and use is going to look like for learners and administrators. I'm sure many of the people here today, including Emily and myself, the .org community folks, and all of you listening in, are wrestling with what that means. Google just released a career dreamer tool, for example, that's powered by their AI Gemini, and it's really cool. But is it actually useful? Hard to say just yet. So my advice is the most important thing around implementing AI is making sure that it drives material value to the learners or admins. And generative AI is one that I think we've all seen does have value when it's used properly. So that's a good example of that.
Yeah, love that. Thanks, Evan. And then another trend is the emergence and growth of micro credentials as a form of CE. I'm sure folks are familiar with that as well. But just a couple stats to discuss here is, in 2019, the micro credentialing industry was valued at 9.9 billion from a market perspective, and that is estimated to grow into 20 billion in 2025. So we're seeing significant growth in the micro credentialing market. And more than 1 million micro credentials are being offered in the United States, and not only by colleges and universities, but other organizations. And these could be for credit, not for credit, et cetera. So really seeing the need for customers, learners wanting kind of that stackable credential more so than anything else. Lastly, let's talk about personalized learning. I think this has been probably a trend and things you've been hearing about for some time now, but we're really seeing that members and learners are expecting tailored experiences that fit their needs and career paths in particular. So whether it be by AI, like we talked about earlier, as a driver for personalization, maybe it's data-driven insights. There might be ways that organizations can create more adaptive learning pathways or recommendations based on previous activity. Also options as it relates to customized support. All of those can really increase engagement and drive completion rates at the end of the day. So now that we are aware of some of the trends shaping the CE market these days, let's talk about some best practices. And I'm going to kick us off with our first best practice. Let me just get to the next slide here. So we just talked about personalized learning as a trend. So now let's talk about it also as a best practice. And first and foremost, let's talk about why personalization is important. And just start with some research actually that we've seen here at BenchPrep is that our learners who follow a personalized learning pathway, their engagement improves by almost 100%. And to stack on top of that, we know that customers that have higher engagement also leads to better outcomes. Now, those outcomes could vary based on the objective of your course, whether that's completion or performance and mastery, but allowing customers to have that more personalized experience to what they're specifically trying to accomplish can have meaningful impact on engagement and retention. And so here are just some ideas to consider implementing into your products when we're talking about personalization. The first is goal-based, which could be a great place to start if this is something that's newer for you. Can you personalize a learning or practice product based on a learner's goal? Maybe it's time-based. Somebody wants to engage with content 30 minutes a day. Maybe somebody wants to jump in and kind of consume all that content all at once. Maybe there's a completion goal, performance goal, et cetera. So is there a way that you can actually incorporate learner goals into their experience? Another thing to consider is modality personalization. Are you offering different ways for your learners to consume content? You might have folks like our Gen Zers out there who really love videos and short form videos at that. You might have other folks in your audience that prefer text or images, more visual. They might prefer webinars like what we're on today. So making sure you're offering kind of that personalized experience also from a content medium perspective is something to keep in mind. And then lastly, breadth versus depth, kind of really thinking about, how much content are you covering in a given product, and then how deep are you going into that topic area? Certain learners may need different kind of depth as they go into content to really help them master it and help them understand it. So really kind of understanding kind of at what level you're going down deep into a topic, and then also how much you're covering in a given product as well. There are several attributes that can drive success for a given learner, but being able to personalize the experience based on these goals and some of these preferences can really drive additional value. And having an LMS that supports these different offerings is crucial. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Evan for number 2.
Thanks, Emily. I'll just add, personally, I find goal-based learning so much more dynamic and engaging when you can especially visualize that goal and see your progression as you complete, learning objectives or assessments or watch videos, whatever the learning asset might be. Okay, let's talk about number 2, offering a variety of delivery formats. So I think we all know that it's pretty industry standard at this point to have a mix of learning from self-paced, live, or blended learning formats. And it's important to understand whether your learners prefer webinar style learning like this, or are they more asynchronous and they want to be studying on their own time. Every industry career is different. Are you producing long form, short form, and micro learning experiences, whether those be the kind of burst videos that Emily was referring to, or months long intensive certificate programs? It's important to be offering lots of ranges of size and breadth of content. Organizations that offer multiple modes of content delivery in long and short form are more likely to see higher engagement, satisfaction, and adoption, which translates to more revenue, more retention, and a much more engaged professional community. Okay, back over to you, Emily, to talk about number 3.
Cool. All right, so now let's talk about accessibility and easy to use interfaces. I think this is something super critical when we're talking about CE, especially in the really competitive and commoditized landscape that the CE market is in today. So why are these two things important? One, it can expand your market reach and really increase your competitive advantage. Having an accessible and user-friendly SaaS product can really reach a more broad audience. And professionals, again, are increasingly kind of content on the go, as Evan was saying previously. And especially the Gen Z audience, where we're seeing that 94% of them are using their mobile phones for educational purposes. So making sure that you're prioritizing both device accessibility, making sure your content's available on desktop and mobile devices, and also that the interfaces are accessible, which I'll talk a little bit more about below, will enhance your brand reputation. It could attract enterprise and government clients and really gives you a competitive edge in the market. Something else to consider is just customer satisfaction and also a cost reduction. So having those intuitive interfaces can improve adoption, engagement, and satisfaction while reducing the need for training and customer support. That really kind of thoughtfully designed UX will minimize frustration. It can increase retention and just will boost overall productivity and use of those CE products. And lastly, did just want to speak about kind of supporting and ensuring compliance as it relates to accessibility. There's legal regulations these days that do require digital accessibility. And so prioritizing these just means you are supporting the full audience that you have at your disposal. That just really fosters a more inclusive digital environment and reinforces kind of your brand. All righty, let's move on to number 4.
Best practice number 4, continuous publishing. I think we know ensuring content is relevant and up to date is essential. It's not just a nice to have, it's a must. And as industries evolve, regulations change, learners expect content that is evolving with their career. If your material feels outdated, your engagement will drop and your credibility as a library or repository can take a hit. For credentialing and compliance, staying up to date isn't optional either. Best programs keep content relevant so learners get real value, stay competitive, and keep coming back. That's where the flywheel of revenue growth really happens with great continuing education programs. This does mean retiring old webinars and roping in new competencies and skills that come from your job task analysis or practice analysis and other changes to your competency frameworks. And also building micro-credentials that move the needle on careers. That's hard work to do, but you'll see the best ROI on that. And then our last best practice, Emily, I'll let you talk about that.
Alrighty. So our last best practice for today is to really ensure that you are having a clear value proposition for your CE products. And when marketing it, it's really important to emphasize the value to learners and what they're going to gain beyond just the certificate or the recognition, right? CE should not merely be viewed just as a box to check for people, but as a meaningful opportunity for skill validation and professional development. The focus should be on the tangible benefits that the learners are going to receive, such as gaining practical, applicable knowledge and support for career growth. A strong value proposition will demonstrate how your program equips learners with real-world skills that directly contribute to their success, making it a worthwhile investment of their time and effort.
And if I can just add one comment to that.
Mhm.
One thing you can do right away if you work on one of these programs directly is when you do your surveys of your learners, ask about what they value the most from your current products and offerings. And if you see they're often citing some type of CE hour or similar obligation-based learning asset, that's an opportunity to consider implementing some of these best practices to try and revamp the program. So while those requirements remain, you're also adding more value in other areas.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, let's talk about taking these best practices and turning them into streamlined CE programs. We can talk a bit about efficiency and scalability on that. So tip number one, repurposing content. Repurposing continuing education content effectively can help streamline all your CE programs, maximize your engagement, and reduce content creation efforts. We talked about Gen AI earlier as a great example of that. But here are some examples of how you can repurpose CE content. You can take your large courses and break them into micro-learning modules. Often large courses are already structured in sections or topics. If you think about the future of learning being more skills and task-based in a kind of structure that rolls up into larger competencies, this can be a much more efficient way to learn. It can also be a much more accessible way. You can also convert many of your courses into live experiences. That could be webinars, live classes, event-based learning that can drive a real call to action to engage. And vice versa, you can turn live events into static courses. You can build out over the course of a year, running a consistent monthly webinar on all of the primary topics and then turning that into a finished product with assessment questions or videos or other assets. This is a super efficient way to turn regular scheduled program into in-depth products with a little planning. There are
Yep.
many ways to repurpose content, but the point is to do it to help you be much more efficient and keep your library fresh.
Yeah, absolutely. And just want to comment too, I think sometimes it's easy to think, if you have to create a new product or you want to add to your CE library, that means creating brand new content, which can feel a little bit overwhelming and daunting. But there's so many ways that you can get creative with what you already have and bring new products to life much easier than you might think about.
So true.
And number two, let's talk about templatizing your CE products and courses. So major proponent of, templatizing if at all possible, especially if you have found certain templates and programs that resonate really positively with your customer base, have high satisfaction and high completion rates. That's a signal that you're doing something right and you should lean into that more and more. So templatizing your courses enables faster course development. You can format those consistently. It reduces the time to design or even configure and set up things, which is great. It also provides a more consistent learner experience to your audience. People do like consistency at the end of the day and like to kind of know what they're going to expect going into a product. So just lets learners be very familiar with the experience. And there's obviously cost savings and also scalability benefits too from an organization perspective. You can reduce time and save money kind of from, again, content development, from a technical setup, go-to-market perspective if everything's templatized, and just more scalable really helps you kind of replicate and add products over time. And over to you, Evan.
Awesome. Number 3, right?
Yes.
Recognitions. I think you see a lot of different references to recognitions. They might be called achievements, they might be called badges or certificates. We kind of bucket them all under this framework of recognition, which is recognizing the completion of certain work. Providing CE opportunities isn't just about fulfilling those member requirements. It's about driving long-term engagement. And one of the best ways to achieve that is by implementing these tiered recognitions. These can be, foundational to expert. They can be about tiers of actual recognition, badges to micro-credentials to recertification pathways. When members see a clear pathway to personal growth, and we touched on that earlier, whether it's visualized or in a recognition format, they stay engaged and continue learning. Commoditized CE doesn't worry about adding career value and upskilling, it's transactional. Your organization can stand out by offering these digital badges, certificates, and exclusive content at a level that meets the learner where they are. Tiered recognition differentiates the program, setting a new standard, and these can be lightweight recognitions or certificates, learning pathways, or even really meaningful certifications. Structured learning pathways help members advance their career while giving employers clear benchmarks of expertise. This strengthens your organization's role in shaping industry standards and professional development. By implementing tiered recognition, your CE program becomes more than just a requirement. It becomes a powerful tool for learner engagement, career growth, and industry leadership. Over to you, Emily.
Love that tip. 4, and we've just got a couple more slides, so we'll maybe get a wiggle on so we have some time at the end for questions. But number 4 is to lean on a partner. The average CE library does have hundreds of products typically, and they can get big and challenging to manage. And we talked about kind of continuous publishing and keeping content up to date. So we know that's super important. It's just not a set it and forget it type of business at the end of the day. It does require kind of constant upkeep and maintenance if you're really going to drive that engagement and revenue. So looking for a partner who can serve as as an extension of your team can be really beneficial. Partners can help you from add more products perspective. So whether, again, that's supporting new content development or helping you figure out ways that you can repurpose the content that you already have, like we spoke about earlier, is huge. Kind of bringing in a fresh set of eyes can go a long way. They can also help you templatize your library, like we spoke about earlier. They can also help keep your products up to date, kind of from a maintenance perspective. And then typically partners can ultimately help you get courses to market faster. Partners typically come with more resources. They've got really streamlined processes, and they are there to support you and your goals, and will typically help you get them done potentially faster than you might be able to do yourself.
Yeah, speaking directly to finding the right partners, one final tip for streamlining programs comes down to using the right technology. Technology needs to support both learner and administrator experiences, allow for multiple use cases and product offerings, from live learning webinars all the way to high stakes learning experiences and certification. Should support easy enrollment, purchasing and upselling, integrations directly into all of the other technologies that you use, and all of the granular reporting that you need, so you can make good decisions around what products to build next. And then, speaking of reporting, it's important not to forget how important it is to turn these data bites into actionable insights. Learning data can help uncover learner engagement, inform new product design or training products, improve sales and product adoption, and generate more revenue with product recommendations. Over to you, Emily, to talk about some next steps that everyone here can think about.
Yes. Okay. This is our final slide before we open it up to Q&A, but we did just want to leave you with a couple tangible next steps that you can take away from this. And so for those of you with an existing CE library, we really encourage you to take some time to do an audit. First, consider your content library. Is your content still relevant? Is it offering value beyond just the recognition that it's providing to those learners? Can your recognitions be stacked, right? Is there a way that you can kind of stack your products and courses in a way that people can kind of earn those credits over time? And where do you stand from a competitive pricing perspective? Is your pricing competitive in the market? Definitely kind of worth a quick kind of competitive analysis on that front. The second is your technology and your services stack. Are both of those things really enabling an easy to use, accessible, and personalized experience for your audience? Is it making the lives of your administrators easier as well? If it's easier for administrators, it means you're going to be able to manage and maintain your courses even more and kind of provide more value. So something not to be ignored. And then do you have the help you need, or could you use a little bit of additional help and do more if you did have a partner to help you on? And then lastly is your business model. Is it optimized for engagement, lifetime value, and that recurring revenue that we started with today? Definitely take a look, and there might be some different opportunities and kind of new models to consider to really drive more engagement and revenue. And with that, I think we're at our final slide.
Good. Then I'll hop in with a couple of questions that came in through the Q&A. And the first one is, with AI changing literally every week, how can we keep current with the CE program?
I'll take that one. That's a great question. I touched on this a little bit earlier. I think it's important, first of all, to pay attention to what's happening. How are other people deploying and using AI? And part of that is coming to things like this, going to conferences, talking to your colleagues in other industries, how they're using it in learning, and also talking to the technology companies that are often at the forefront of implementing this and asking what their use case is, what their roadmap looks like, and how they're integrating AI. I think generally right now, I think it's good to be interested, but not too aggressive on what products you should be building that are really AI forward. AI right now is a great support mechanism for content generation and data discovery and review. It's not yet at the point where it's doing kind of complex learner coaching and experiences. I think it will be in the next year or less, but you just want to be, I think, letting some other people lead in that space who are experts, follow along, and when you can see clear demonstrable value to your learners, and think of yourself as a learner as a great always test case, but you can also survey your learners to understand what they're looking for, then you can start to deploy actual product and commercialized experiences that are based on an AI tool or AI user interface.
Great, thank you. Here's one. When you repurpose content, how do you prevent customers from purchasing the same content twice?
Want me to take that, Emily?
Sure.
The key is that the content is being structured and used in a way that it doesn't feel like it's being repurposed, right? So if you're taking a webinar you do and then turning it into a more robust certification where maybe it's a roll-up of multiple webinars, then you're adding a lot of value, right? If you take a webinar and change the title and republish it as another product, right, you're not adding value. So I think there's a little bit of kind of good judgment that you need to make around, if I were the consumer of this product, do I see the value here? That's important. And then, of course, in your marketing language and things like that, you should be transparent around using the same product titles for things where content is flowing over, so that if things are connected back to a competency framework you may have, it's very obvious, like, I've taken the micro course here, now I'm buying the complete course, I'm going to see some content that I've already consumed because these cover similar areas, right? So there's some messaging that you can do. And then secondly, be transparent. You shouldn't be trying to kind of trick anyone. It should be very obvious, but that doesn't mean you can't reuse things. And I think different modalities, different formats also are a good way to take content that's in a webinar setting and turning it into text-based and assessment-based content, right? It's a similar topic, but the modality is different, and therefore the experience is going to be different.
Okay, thank you. And we've gone over by a couple of minutes. Do you want to take one more question? Or
Sure.
people can stay on. how do we determine the best pricing strategy for our CE offerings?
I can
I'll
start.
take it too.
You want to take that one?
I was gonna let you have one question, Emily. I feel like I'm doing well.
You're on a roll. You can take it away.
Okay. That's a good question. Pricing is tough. I think there's a few questions you can ask of your programs. Are your CEUs required or optional? Is the market competitive or not for that particular product? And are your offerings differentiated? The more value you offer, the more pricing power you have. So most learners want simplicity and value, and a bundled annual CE subscription with a tiered library checks a lot of those boxes, for example. So we talked about kind of auditing your business model and your library through a number of different lenses. You'll get a really clear sense of where you sit in the larger marketplace, what consumers are, why they're coming to you versus other providers. And that'll give you a sense of how much pricing power you have.
Great, thank you. So
Great
thank
questions.
you, thank you, Evan and Emily, for sharing all of that information in 30 minutes. I think you packed a lot in there. And thanks to everyone for attending. If you have any questions, you see Emily and Evan's contact information is on the screen, and it'll also be in the presentation information that we send post-webinar. Thanks again to the two of you and for everyone that attended. Have a great afternoon.